I hope all of you all are doing well in these kind of weird times that we're having. So this is the first lesson in a series of lessons that are going to help you create a really great essay. And so we have to start out that really great essay with a plan. And the idea today is that we are going to talk about our thesis statement. We're going to make sure that our thesis statement is good and that it is based on evidence. Now, many of you may have learned how to create a good thesis statement already. I'm sure what I'm telling you today is just going to complement what you already know. So what you need in front of you is a packet. And this is the packet that I handed you on Friday. If you were not here on Friday, then you're going to find this packet in Schoology, and it's going to say, I believe it's going to say American Dream Essay Resources. It should be the last document that has been uploaded to the materials of your class page. The documents from this resource packet that we're going to be working on today, resource number 3, which is evidence-based thesis. And you're also going to need resource number 2 because your thesis is going to be developed over these sources that we've studied in class. Now, just to be clear, for resource number 2 with the list of sources, all of those hyperlinks have been pasted onto the assignment on Schoology. So you should be able to copy and paste the link from that assignment, put it into your browser, and find the article you're looking for, or the text, whatever it may be. Now, the other thing I'll tell you is many of you will have some hard copies of these in your folders, and of course, that might be a better way to look at some of them. For example, the I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King. I know you guys have a copy of that. So let's go ahead and start. You guys know that the question that you're going to be talking about for your essay is the American dream achievable for all people? And let me start off by saying very clearly, you have to take one or the other side. You cannot exist in the middle. What I'm asking you to do is to give me an argumentative paper, a persuasive paper. Okay, so you're arguing that either yes, the American dream can be achieved by anyone, or you're arguing no, not everyone has access to their American dream. You cannot be in the middle. The reason you cannot be in the middle is because your argument is going to be muddled and you're not going to be able to make your point well. Okay, and if that's the case, then your score is going to be lower. Now, for the sake of today, I'm going to actually talk about a different prompt. The prompt I'm going to talk about is this one. Is it ethical, which means morally right, to give juveniles life sentences in prison when they commit violent crimes? Now, just for those of you who may not know, the term juveniles means a person that is young, a person that is under the age of 18. Now, some of you might be wondering, why in the world am I talking about this question? I'm talking about this question because pretty much every time I give examples and show examples of the exact topic that we're talking about, students will accidentally plagiarize. And I really don't want anybody to end up in that situation, whether it's an accident or on purpose. And so the process I'm going to teach you today, I'm going to do it over a different question, but it's a very similar approach, right? So the answer to this question that I'm going to go over, this one, is yes, it is okay or it is ethical to let a juvenile be charged as an adult and send them to life in prison. Or no, it is not ethical. Okay, so just like the question you're answering, this one has it has two sides very clearly defined. Okay. So, just to remind you guys, I think I talked about this earlier, this is your list of sources. This is on the resource page that is uploaded into Schoology. These are all the things that you have to choose from when you're trying to create your thesis today. The other thing that I want to mention is we had a lesson last week or 2 weeks ago, where you guys talked about images that related to the American dream. If you wish to use one of those images in your essay, you're more than welcome to do that. Those are under VTS discussion, American Dream images. Pardon me, and they're also on Schoology. Also, Remember the Google Doc that we did about 3 weeks ago? What you guys did as a group is you took several sources, this one, this one, this one, and this one. You all split them up and you took out 2 pieces of evidence from each article. You put it on the Google Doc, and it was organized in a way that showed me some of them were in support of the American dream, and some of them were saying that it wasn't possible to achieve the American dream. So that would be a really great place to go as a refresher for what you guys have read. Now, in terms of all of these, you guys have read all of these texts, so you should be familiar with all of them. So let's go ahead and start with this evidence-based thesis. Again, I'm answering the question about is it ethical to charge a juvenile to a life term in prison for a violent crime, okay? And so immediately, my answer to that question is no. I do not believe that it is ethical. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find sources that help me prove that point from the get-go, okay? Now, let me back up for a minute and let me talk about this worksheet. So it starts off as very broad, okay? The question says, what words, lines, ideas, and phrases seem important and interesting in the text? And of course, in parentheses, these ideas may come from responses to text-dependent questions or other close reading activities. So what I want to do is I want to find at least 3 pieces of evidence that connect to the point of view that I already have, that I do not believe it is ethical for a juvenile to be sentenced to a life term, okay? So we have 3 sources here. Let's start with this one. The first one is called Juveniles Don't Deserve Life Sentences. And in this article, it says that juveniles have an enormous capacity to change. It also says that juveniles are promising candidates for rehabilitation. In a second article relating to this topic, it's called The Teen Brain is Still Under Construction. So this makes the argument that parts of the brain that are responsible for impulse control are not yet fully developed. It also adds that emotional distress and emotional disturbances inhibit the brain's optimal functioning, meaning if somebody has gone through really traumatic or hard situations, then he or she may not be able to function at the best capacity. My third source is called Kids Are Kids Until They Commit Crimes. And so in this one, there's this idea that they kind of expose this idea and stereotype that there are super predators out there, children who are super predators who commit violent crimes. And then the last point that the person makes is it's really hypocritical to treat a juvenile this way because they don't have the same rights as adults. So why would we try them as an adult? So I'm looking at my evidence. All of this evidence together can help me talk about the fact that I do not believe it is ethical to try a juvenile as an adult. Part 2, we're going to start narrowing down the ideas here. We have our evidence, okay? Now what we do is we talk about the patterns that we see. So what patterns do you see? What connections seem to exist among these important ideas and details? So what I want to do is kind of synthesize this information and think about what they all have in common. So here's what I've said. It does not make logical sense to punish a juvenile as an adult when he or she is not yet biologically mature. While it is true that juveniles have committed horrific crimes, they are young enough to change, face their crimes responsibly, and turn their lives around. The stereotypes and hysteria about juvenile crime blows the actual crime out of proportion. It's not fair to try a juvenile as an adult because they're not adults. Now that I have this, okay, again, I'm putting together these ideas, trying to narrow them down. We narrow it down even further. And this is where we get to our thesis, or at least a draft of our thesis. So the question is, what evidence-based claims would these patterns allow you to make about the text? And when it asks about claims, we know that that's synonymous with thesis. And then lastly, pardon, my mouse keeps freezing. What conclusion can you draw from the text that you could then support with evidence from the text? Okay? And so looking at this information, this is how I have narrowed it down and simplified it. It is unethical to sentence juveniles to life in prison because physically they are not yet adults, and the likelihood of rehabilitation is too high not to offer them a second chance at life outside of prison. So, looking at all this information, I narrowed it down, and then I narrowed it down even further, and this actually could be a good, strong thesis. And this is exactly what I want you to do with the sources that you have for the American Dream. So, here's your takeaway. This is what I need you to do today for today's lesson. Of course, you need to gather your sources. Those are on Schoology, they're in your binder, they're in a variety of places. If you don't know at all where any of them are, then go to source number 2 in your resource packet and use those links. Number 2, pick a side before you begin. You're either on the side of yes, it is achievable for people, or no, it's not achievable for everyone. Using the sources that help you prove your side, begin filling out the evidence-based thesis worksheet. And I want you to have evidence from at least 3 sources. So today, for today's lesson, this is precisely what I want you to do. And after that, what I need you to do is take a picture of resource number 3, completely filled out, and I want you to submit it to a new assignment in Schoology that is labeled evidence-based thesis. Okay, I will be available for whatever questions you guys have after you watch the video.